Dr.Peter Smolianov es un profesor de la Universidad Estatal de Salem, en Estados Unidos, eso es en Massachusetts, ¿no? Al este del país. Su formación académica incluye estudios en Australia, la antigua Unión de Repúblicas Socialistas Soviéticas y Estados Unidos. También fue atleta en la antigua Unión de Repúblicas Socialistas Soviéticas en su tiempo. Es profesor en el área de la administración deportiva, ha escrito numerosos artículos y libros en el tema de la gestión del deporte. Es autor del libro Desarrollo del deporte en los Estados Unidos, el alto rendimiento y la participación masiva. También ha escrito libros acerca de métodos de entrenamiento marginales, es decir, tipos de entrenamiento que no es común verlos o utilizarlos en el occidente, ¿verdad? Sino que vienen de la antigua, detrás de la cortina de hierro antigua, la Unión Soviética. Entonces, tiene mucha experiencia e información distinta que quiere compartir el día de hoy. Y el tema de su presentación es identificación de las mejores prácticas y oportunidades para el mejoramiento o el avance de sistemas integrados de rendimiento deportivo masivo y experiencias en natación en los Estados Unidos, Rusia, Holanda, Países Bajos y Costa Rica. Welcome to our university and the stage is yours.
Yes. Welcome. I would like this to be more an invitation rather than a presentation. I hope that we will conduct a comparative study for analyzing swimming in Costa Rica, as was done in a number of countries, including the United States, Netherlands. I'm going to outline the results, and I invite you to join us, my team of researchers in the United States and across the world, with your thoughts, with your feedback, and hopefully with your research that would contribute to this long-term comparative global study. So please interrupt me anytime and ask for translation if anything is unclear or you want to clarify anything. I worked in Australia for 10 years and in Russia in different roles in sport management and coaching and coordinating sports. Lately, in the past 20 years, I was in Boston at Salem State University conducting studies similar to this. We've done it for many sports in the United States and across the world. And basically, what we're looking at is that is different from what was done before is that we'll look at mass participation and high performance sport in integration and how they interact and how masses of, in this case, swimmers can help the national team to perform better. How all these processes, managerial processes, and training methodological processes can be optimized so that mass sport helps high performance, but also high performance shares all the best practices with everyone on intermediate and beginner level. So this is the model that we look at. We look at seven elements at 3 levels. Micro level or micro level is your athletes, how you identify, train, and prepare every athlete. Micro level. Micro level is supported by meso level, mezzo level, meso level, infrastructure, your training centers, your facilities, your swimming pools, your training, all your training halls, system of competitions, and system of preparing coaches, preparing all referees, instructors, all personnel, supporting them with not only education, but scientific knowledge and promotion. That's your meso level. All this is supported by macro level. At macro level, you need cultural, economic, organizational support. You need strong partnerships within the swimming industry, within the sport industry, and outside with corporations, with the government. Your partnerships are critically important. And this is what we're looking at as a unique element, is balanced and integrated funding and structures of mass and elite sport. How you integrate high performance teams with masses. How you basically bring in one swimming pool both top team, intermediate team, beginners, so that they're all together helping each other to develop. Would you like any Spanish translation for this concept? No. So how we've done it, and we've done it in the same way in many countries for many different sports. We look at, in America, we started to 2,000 swimming coaches, and we only receive 5% of responses, and that's usual scenario, or sometimes even more. Federations or associations are not involved very much. When they are, we have much higher response rate, but we just wait until we get 100 responses. We use SurveyMonkey to invite coaches to participate. After we get more than 100 responses, we produce tables identifying the problems, opportunities, and some best practices. And we give these results to federation, administrators, swimming leaders, head coaches, and administrators of swimming, in this case, swimming association, USA Swimming. So we reached 14 of them. In many sports, we have 10. So we say minimum 10 people who are leading the sports are looking at the results of this survey of coaches and are suggesting what needs to be done to improve, what can be done, which best practices that coaches indicated can be used across the country, which problems that coaches indicated must be fixed across the country. And 7 elements produce the following results. This is what coaches say. This is what 100 coaches say. And we highlight, so we ask on element 1, we ask 10 questions. And we highlight the ones that have low scores. So these are the problems. The biggest problem in the US swimming is that swimming coaches' expertise is equally high across all participant ages and levels. So education of coaches is not good enough, according to themselves. They say we don't have that. you will see that it's interesting that in European surveys it's not as much of a problem. So not enough coaches per athlete is another major issue. And identification, coach identification, athlete talent identification is also problematic in America, and I think it's a global issue, is that now schools are not open anymore to coaches coming to physical education classes, conducting tests, inviting kids to come join clubs. In the Soviet Union, when I was a kid, that was a standard practice. Sport ministry would actually schedule you as a coach to go to one school, to school 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's when you visit schools in your district, go for physical education class, observe it, conduct tests, bring kids to your club who are predisposed to be good swimmers. Even there now, more and more privatization, more and more restrictions. This search for a school maybe it's still in place in Cuba or in other countries that still have good public system of education.
Can you read the last one to read something?
The previous slide?
Yeah, I just want to read something that.
Yeah, so we'll look at certain elements. we will email you the presentation, and please email me back with any questions. Let us know if you want to be part of this. By the way, this is all done by students. In my classes, I have managed to involve students at groups of undergraduate students, some in 1 or 2 graduate students do it every year, and they help me. We have a process in place that helps students to follow the this research procedure, this methodology, to finish the study within a short period of time. So please contact me. So that's element 1. We also summarize open responses of coaches. What can be done? What are those good practices? What are those problems that need to be fixed? So we summarize them, especially for those problematic areas. And we summarize them again, so you can see that 44 largest proportion said lack of facilities, monies, and publicity was the biggest problem in open responses. When they say, and then what do you want to say? So almost half of the coaches said we don't have enough money, facilities, and publicity. So for element 2, we do the same thing. We identify the key problems. So the most important problem for element 2, which is support of top athletes, is that they don't have a good system of workplace support. So if you're on a candidate to the national team, across the world, you basically are employed. And even in the United States, companies like Hilton Hotels, they employed athletes, gave them flexible schedules. You work 20, 30 hours a week. After you finish your professional swimming career, you have a good place to continue working, and you're being prepared for. U.S. Army, of course, is doing a lot of it. So it would be very interesting to see how Costa Rica, how government and corporations in Costa Rica are able to help swimmers and other top athletes have that salary to survive during their professional career in swimming, and then most importantly after, because another problem is that athletes living in sport are provided with individualized plans. But of course, for this good lifestyle after you retire, you also need place to work. And we know that International Olympic Committee started this program, not just preparing resume or advising you how to get a job, but actually securing employment for you as an athlete. Arranging an employment with, for example, Hilton hotels, or if you, or consulting companies if you have a degree. So that's a growing trend led by International Olympic Committee. So American swimming coaches are indicating that more of this is needed, and that's the highest priority. Yeah, we have open responses elaborating on how this can be done, what exactly are the problems. Open responses summary. Element 3 are your swimming pools, and all that surrounds your sport hubs. So all that you need around the swimming pool, you need to have school nearby, good food, transportation, right? All your infrastructure. So here, the biggest problem for the US is the training centers are too expensive. They're not available at affordable cost. So cost is a problem, and it's still far. Travel from home to facilitate studio. Well, it's big country, and transportation is car, which is terrible for swimmers, terrible for parents. Public transportation is very problematic, and that's the indication of that. It's a lot of swimmers are lost to the sport because parents cannot drive them so far, and public transportation is inadequate. So these are the issues. These are the key issues for training centers. Competition systems. The main issues within the US swimming is that they have big competitions that attract sponsors, but they are not always assisting local developmental events. So you attract some funding for major events, but local events don't have enough. And that's a disbalance that is indicated here as a major problem. And event sponsorship incomes are used to develop competitions. So that's the same, basically similar problem. That sponsors give money to top events, and these events should be sharing some of that with local through federation, and it's not always happening. So that's the problem. Open responses again. Summarize the element 5. Your intellectual support of the sport. So they conduct a lot of research. A lot of universities in America conduct top-class, world-class research. But what coaches are saying is it is not communicated. There is no central body, like a sport ministry, that would do this. And USA Swimming is not doing it enough, obviously. USA Swimming, communication of research to coaches should be improved. How? There are many ways to do it that they suggest. And also, this is, again, this was indicated earlier in element 1 also about the education of coaches. Here, again, education of referees, maybe sport medicine specialists. Also, they're saying must be improved. Level of education of everyone who is servicing swimmers. So these are the key problems. Education and communication of research results. Coaches are saying we don't get the important research results that maybe in other countries coaches receive quicker and in a more systematized way. Partnerships. The main issue here that US swimming coaches indicated is that there needs to be more cooperation with corporations and other private, particularly private, but also government agencies outside of sport. So hospitals, they need more cooperation with hospitals. Okay? So that doctors service swimmers better, and sport doctors might serve hospitals with very new, innovative sport medicine methods. These are the best practices in America now, but they're isolated. More cooperation with scientific bodies, so that science research results come to sport teams quicker and in a more useful way. Even with the U.S. Army supporting very well all athletes, they still want more support from the military, philanthropic sponsoring organizations, and lotteries. Lotteries in America now, gambling is becoming more legal in many states. There is a trend of legalizing gambling in America, and there are also public lotteries that generate a lot of money in each state. For example, Massachusetts lottery, and professional sports like baseball, football, American football, hockey, ice hockey. They dominate it. They get money from these lotteries. They get this gambling money, and in many other countries, these monies, they are distributed through the ministry, through the government, to many sports, many Olympic sports. But in the USA, most of this gambling money goes to a few entertainment sports that are dominating, that are on TV all the time, and so this is the problem that USA swimming coaches say. We need more cooperation so that we get more resources from all these organizations, and they're very, very unhappy about how government supports the sport, because there is no governmental body for a sport ministry, as it is in most of the developed countries. So this is a reflection on that. Here, partnerships, here, open responses, and we have the last element is how you balance and integrate the overall support of your sport. And here, what is done in many countries and is almost approved by American government by itself is the reduced personal tax. It's in the Senate. It's been discussed for many years, but still, you do not get, like in Canada. In Canada, you get if you pay tax, you get $1,000 back for your club fees for participating in sport. And that's in Russia has just last year introduced a new tax deduction for everybody. So basically, all your expenses that you do to sport, that tax deductible. Okay. And that's I think in China, in Germany, in many countries it worked better or worse, but in America it's still to start. And that's the reflection of that. They're saying we need that, it's not in place. The cost of special schools where you have special meals for kids, that are close to the swimming pool and have partnership with the facility and with the coaches. In America, they are free only for top, the best of the best. The rest they have to pay. In Russia and in China, these have been public and free of charge, not only to go, but only to sleep and eat and receive medical assistance there. In Russia, there are maybe 30 of them in each city, and they are actually introducing now the system of private. You can, if you're not a very good swimmer, you can still go there now for money. And it's not a lot. It's still subsidized, and most families, even if you're not rich, you can afford. But in the US, affordability is a big problem. If you want to send your kid to the school similar to IMG Academy in Florida, which is growing to tennis and to soccer, many other sports, too expensive. So that basically too expensive is the main complaint of the US coaches. Paradoxically, in such a rich country, but the main complaint is that we don't have enough money. And another thing is that there is this trend of integrating fitness tests, good fitness test system in the training process. They say it needs to be improved. It needs to be done at school level, at the club level, it should be done at each age level, and you can argue that some countries do this in a more systematic way. It works, some say it doesn't. In Russia, there is a system of 11 stages that are based on age. And you have to do at each age, including 6 years old and including like 70 plus. They developed a system of fitness tests that are minimal requirement for you as a swimmer, for you as a competitor in any sport. You first need to pass basic fitness test. Only then you can qualify to participate in any competition. You need to do 10 push-ups, 6 pull-ups, endurance, flexibility, basic things are required for each age, and kids are taught at school how to do this. And I have English translation of these tests. If anybody is interested, I will mention it. It would be very interesting to see. We looked at how it was done in China, in Russia, in the US, in Europe. It would be really interesting to see how these fitness tests are used at schools, but also at swimming clubs and in other sport clubs in Latin America. So then we developed specific recommendations summarizing all this data that we collect. it's all based on open responses now of administrators. We will look at how administrators react to this survey results, to these results of coaches survey, and we ask them to comment on each element. Okay, and what they say, we just record. And in most cases, they email us or email our students who run this project. They email back with their comments, and we analyze them for each element. Come up with recommendations based on leaders of the sport. What needs to be done? If we compare the results of American swimming survey with Dutch, yes, in the Netherlands, they also said that they want better training, better education, but they also said that transportation from schools to swim clubs could be better. Competition schedules could be designed more effectively. But, so at meso level, more, basically better communication, better advertising, better sponsorships. At macro level, also similar kind of indication that lower level is not of swimming is not should be better supported. Better support of coaches with bonuses. But interesting thing was that basically almost all coaches in the Netherlands had university education, whereas in the US we see that many coaches are not educated, and the coaching certification also, less than half of US coaches were certified, whereas in the Netherlands there is a significant difference. Almost say three quarters of versus half. So basically, better education and better certification is evident in Europe, and swim coaches in the USA express that. They realize that. They say that we need better education. We need better support from. We need to know the research results better. They ask for it. So another interesting thing to compare, and would be very interesting to compare it with South America, with Latin America, is the North American, particularly US issue with African American inequality issues. So compared to white Americans, they don't know how to swim. That's the simple kind of simplification of the problem. Why slavery and culture plays an important role is that slaves were threatened with drowning for many years. Black babies were used as alligator baits bathing. So a lot of kind of stress and cruelty is associated with water for African Americans. So a racial issue, racial inequality is the main problem of this, and how we overcome that. It's very difficult, but a realization of that is in place, at least the statistical information is there. We see that African Americans and Hispanic Americans much less opportunities for learning to swim. And these are the programs that are designed to tackle this issue. These are the objectives to change the situation. And these are the programs that are to provide more opportunities for poor and for ethnic deprived kind of segments of the population to learn how to swim. So free swim lessons, a lot of advertising, non-profit organizations, organizations to which wealthy people can give money to, organizations that attract governmental grants, private money to provide free swimming lessons, free swimming lessons in convenient locations for those. Effectiveness of these measures have been demonstrated in the United Kingdom. So in England, with these swim programs at schools, where everybody has to be able to swim. And in Australia, there's another best practice school program for swimming. And there are a number of other countries who demonstrate best practices. You save a lot of lives. That's been confirmed, and evaluations confirmed as recommendations. In America, best practices were found. We searched for different municipalities, and New York City is doing something that probably no other city has done in America, and maybe even in the world. And it's very interesting and paradoxical, because it's probably the most capitalistic city, but at the same time, it's the most socialist city, from what we can see now. They have policies that are socialist, if not communist, for not only for swimming, but for healthy lifestyle in general. Okay? Prohibiting unhealthy habits and promoting healthy habits, providing free swim lessons, swim team programs. Okay, it's very interesting, because it's done through the Municipal Department of Parks and Recreation. So the government is doing it, is coordinating, is taking private money and putting them into free membership for young people and old people in his departments, in his recreation centers across New York City. These are their budgets and basic financial analysis. Very important. Partnership is with private organizations. They attract funding from private corporations. But also, they have very strong partnership with police, athletic league of New York City, and they are government. So it's a best practice example of public-private partnership in the world. They require those who teach swimming to have certifications, to have first aid certificate. You must be able to save life. You must be able to know general fitness theory. Okay, so they take education of this coaches seriously, even if they're part-time coaches. The most important indication of this best practice is that so they take kids from 6 to 18, and you can join one of the 12 teams in 5 different districts of the city. And they regularly compete against each other. But to compete, you only need to be able to swim 50 meters or something. So it's for all. Very, very important thing. It's competitive. It's competitive. You're preparing for competitions, but no one is excluded. They teach you how to swim. You swim okay, you compete. So this is done for, I think this is a great example of mass participation program. That probably should be better connected with high performance. But as a mass participation, that's a great example. So these are just some details of other training centers. Yeah, so any swimmer who can swim 50 yards freestyle in good form can try out for a team. Mass participation. When you go to advanced level, of course, there's lack of support. This is more for beginner, intermediate level swimmers. So integration is still in New York City. If you look at those seven elements that we are analyzing, partnerships are really well integrated, but talent development for top swimming teams is not such a priority for New York City. They're more about mass participation. In terms of money they get, a lot of money they get from their local private donors, but also from police, public school, athletic league. So it's a very interesting model of being able to provide system of swimming that is beneficial for the city and for actual health of the whole state. That's best practice in America. And these are the issues in America. It would be very interesting to see what are the key issues in swimming of Costa Rica, and what are some of the best practices that can be shared. We could say that this New York City example can be implemented in most other American cities. So that, is there anything in Latin America that could be done so that every city in Costa Rica could implement? Or is there best practice or best model of developing swimming in Costa Rica that can be developed across the country and shared with other countries in Latin America? This is what we are doing in this research. With Russia, it's centralized, it's very well coordinated, it is very difficult. People work people work enormous hours, they spend a lot of time coordinating in meetings. No other country is prepared to put so much effort and hard work into managing sport, which is supposed to be fun. For Russians, sport is not fun. It's serious business. And you work from early morning to late night. These are sport ministry people who are government officials who sit there and they coordinate, schedule everything, and they think through and they cooperate and they require all coaches to interact, to do too much of analyzing and seminars and so sharing and a Russian practice is difficult. It requires too much work. That's from all my years in sports in Australia, in America, everywhere outside Russia. Most things I suggest from Russian experiences, oh man, that's too difficult. You're proposing something that's too cruel to us, we cannot work so much. So, but what are little things that can be done? For them, they set very clear and very specific objectives. They say 40% of overall population, 20% of disabled people, 8% of students must participate in sport. 45% of all organizations have to have a sport club. And we need to employ 360,000 qualified coaches. Right? These are the mass participation objectives. But they have objectives for high performance. We need to win university games. We need to be in top 3 in Olympics and top 3 in Paralympics. Over the top. Number of pools, everything is spelled out. It is recommended to lower the cost. There are now government grants for allowing free participation in swimming, which is the country is becoming more and more capitalistic. The country is becoming less and less subsidized, and the cost of swimming is becoming prohibitive for many people who could afford it. When I was young, would be very interesting to find out how prohibitive the cost of swimming is in Costa Rica and compared to maybe other Latin American countries, and see whether something like this could be of interest in Latin America. In one of the regions in Russia that received top kind of grant award from the government, what they've done is they said our regional swimming federation it develops a lead of national health, using that grant. So what they've done is they offer 7 to 15-year-olds a swimming program. 36-hour program is free, I believe. Free is 12 45-minute lessons is free. But at school, I think they organize transportation from school to the club. They say 12 lessons, we take care of everything. It's free for all of you kids. We teach you to swim. Get on the bus, go to the swimming pool, come back. You know how to swim. You know how to trade water. 12 lessons. And then they say, okay, that's federation finds money for that. Then they say your municipality covers them another 12 lessons. Okay, so they say, we come to the school, provide 12 lessons. Now the city pay for another 12 lessons. Okay? And then they go to parents and they say, 24 lessons were given for free to your kids. Now you have to start, please. And they say, but we say it's only $4. Parents now pay for training of their kids, and it's only $4. And it's an interesting psychological, I think, number, because it's a cost of beer. So they say, we charge you for a swim lesson, costs you as much as a bottle of beer. So it's very good for maybe for wives, but very bad for husbands. So now the argument is that you have one less beer this week if you want your kid to go for a swimming lesson. But it's very easy to explain to an ordinary family what you need to devote, right? You basically, wife comes home and she says, no beer this week, our kid is going to a swim lesson. I'm simplifying, but that was the concept behind this program of how to step by step involve everyone into a regular swimming. First you have free lessons through federation, then 12 lessons through your municipality, and then very cheap, very affordable lessons parents have to pay, and get into the habit of supporting their kids. So if they're talented and they have to pay for more to go to travel to, parents are more prepared. So that was a very good program that won a national grant, and it was mostly done for assistance to lower income families and involve them into swimming. So another critical and unique aspect of Russian swimming system is preparation of qualified coaches. They all must be must have 4 years of studies before they coach. Again, too expensive, maybe too difficult, but that's what's been put in place in the Soviet Union, when all coaches first finish their bachelor's degree, then they start coaching. You might argue that current system in Scandinavia, in Finland, for example, every teacher at school must have a master's degree. Yeah, it's expensive, it's too hard, it's too much, but you have the best education in the world. Is this important? If this is important, maybe this is also important. So it's a question of tradition, culture, and less so for economy, because it's still in place in current Russia, which becomes more and more capitalist and more greedy about spending on sport. And in terms of scientific support that US coaches are asking, they have scientific groups. So each Ministry of Sport assigns a group of researchers from different disciplines to each sport. So swimming and track and field and wrestling, they all have a group. There are 40 groups, and these groups might have about maybe 3, 5 or more specialists in biomechanics, in sports psychology, maybe sometimes an engineer if it's a very technical sport. But sport ministry helps these each sport with a group of researchers, team of researchers, so that multidisciplinary research is conducted for each sport. So these are the key best practices. Of course, there is a lot of research as well, and it's more targeted. In America, we have a lot of universities are doing research, but they're doing what they want. In Russia, the difference is they're doing more of what sport ministry and federations ask them to do. They say, we need to know how to optimize the start or the turn. So they put group of researchers together to develop that, to answer that question, basically. So that's also a very unique practice that spreads across the world now, that most of countries who are ambitious about their Olympic performance, they have that. And China is doing that on a larger scale than the Russian USSR, but doing very similar things. In terms of competitions, Russia is returned to the Soviet Union system of multi-level competitions, where you first compete at schools compete against each other, then the finalists go for competition among regions, cities, regions, and then nationals. So it's a pyramidal system of mass competitions that starts at schools. Cuba has pretty much similar system. But that is good for health of the nation as much as for developing talents. It's a very good example of integration of mass participation with elite performance sport. You can read more details, and these are some places in Russia where some of the most advanced swimming facilities are located. Again, if it's about training centers and facilities, please ask me for more information. There is a lot more that we can do to specify what exactly was developed in the centers of several swimming pools together with other infrastructure for swimmers. Sport ministry still tries to arrange visits of coaches to schools, but it's becoming more and more difficult, and it's not as effective as it was 20, 30 years ago. This is a big dilemma on how to identify talent through basically like in Cuba it's done through school competitions. That might be the only way now to do it across the world, but school competitions then need to become more effective in how they are organized to identify talent. In universities too. One of the best ways, and I saw talent identification, is that you have competitions for swimming, track and field, and other mass sports for first-year students. For first year, those who start university. So you identify them in the very beginning of their student years and invite them to the club. I don't know if you have that practice here. It would be interesting to see how you search for talent here in Costa Rica and at this university to make sure you do not miss those kids who would like to swim for the team. Because if you don't, right? So anyway, this is another topic for research. Russia, and at micro level, these are some of the global trends and some research that I'm conducting with a number of colleagues. I'm working with the University of Northern Iowa with their head conditioning coach who trains athletes in more than 10 different sports, including swimming. And he is doing everything from physical, psychological, and physiotherapy to diet. He gives them manuals on these aspects. He contacted me years ago asking what has been done in Australia, because I was there for 10 years preparing to Sydney Olympics, what they have done there. What have you done in the Soviet Union for speed, for endurance? What conditioning exercises you've done? And I started working with him, doing videos, and then we wrote a book, and we're doing another volume. But we're doing a number of studies, and this is the summary of what we're doing. Would be great if you join us and offer something similar to this, so that we can do it here and in the US in parallel. So right now we're looking at University of Northern Iowa swim team and also strength training for other teams, and looking at a number of practices. How many practices a day is optimal, and how to optimize training by breaking it into 2 or 3 practices a day. So short practice in the morning, then afternoon, then in the evening. Is this better than 2 practices? What is the difference? So we know that also countries like China and Russia, for public health, they organize exercise throughout the day, 2 or 3 times a day, break and exercise, and for children as well in daycare. During the day you have not one physical activity, but it's short, but 2 or 3 times a day. You do gymnastics, exercises, organized, scientifically developed exercises which are based actually in the Soviet Union. It was developed first, and it was based on yoga. These are stretches and movements were taken from ancient Eastern methods of fitness and well-being. And children at daycare and workers at factories and offices were all required to do this. And it was broadcast on the radio, and managers were asked to turn on the radio, stop all work, and have a fitness break for everybody across the country. But I think so we're also looking at the influence of this high performance methods of breaking practices into 2 or 3 sessions a day. We're looking at also sharing this with public health policies, how that could help everyone. So it would be very interesting to conduct experiment studies, evaluate effectiveness of this. Another area is fitness testing. We looked at what was done in the Soviet Union, what's done in Russia, which is this GTO fitness gram is American system. Eurofit is European. So in Spain, Eurofit has been used and developed. In China, we looked at China as well, and China used this Russian system. They also used fitness gram recently. So it would be very interesting to compare what's done in Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Asia, North America, and Latin America. What's done, how fitness tests are, what are best practices, and what are the issues, what can be done better in fitness testing for particular sports and for school children and overall population. This is AIDS unlocking physical potential. Very interesting. Very interesting. What is done in Latin America? There are a lot of different plants, a lot of different. In China and Russia, it's called traditional. In the United States, called untraditional, not covered by insurance. We don't want this. This is not proven. Natural ways to increase your athletic ability and improve your health. So it's another area of research. New ways of periodization. The most recent method of parametric training is individualized measuring of your physiological parameters. Again, correlating them with the loads that you are training with and with your results, and make significant changes to the traditional periodization loads based on your individual reaction to the loads and based on your individual results that you're showing. So there's a psychological methods. My colleague from University of Northern Iowa actually hypnotizes his athletes Um, but autogenic training, self-taught. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. Lucid dreaming, German studies. You go to sleep, programming yourself to train in your sleep. Skiers did it. Imagining how you go through the skiing route. You program yourself to train when you sleep. Different breathing and voice exercises, fencing, we've done it in fencing, a lot of Eastern combat methods are using different, ways of screaming and exhaling, right, to increase basically red blood cell count. So oxygenation of your blood is achieved by using voice when you train and compete. So new ways of doing this old forgotten things and other ways that affect your psychological well-being. We're looking at this, trying. In terms of physiotherapy, back, we realize more and more that most of us suffer from back. So focusing on back, and spinal and spinal muscles, joints, strengthening, prolonging the youth of your spine. This is we described quite a lot of methods that I can share with you, but we want to know more, and we want to know more of ancient methods of doing this. Natural physiotherapy, particularly looking at balneotherapy, which is your springs, and natural spring water from. You have hot springs here. How are these hot springs used?
La fortuna. La fortuna de San Carlos. You visit La Fortuna de San Carlos.
How are they used to improve performance and health of athletes? This is the question. How effective and in which situations, and how you rotate it with other physiotherapy methods and other ways to recover better. What is the optimal way of using those for making recovery faster and deeper, better recovery? Would be very interesting to know, and of course the analysis of what's in the water, which elements are doing what for the body. So, because there are a lot of balneotherapy methods in Europe. In the United States, they have been, I'd say, suppressed by pharmaceuticals, and there are a number of places, but they are banned to advertise themselves as beneficial for health because it's difficult. Anyway, it would be very interesting to find out what is done on this front in Latin America, in Costa Rica in particular. How athletes have done it and which illnesses have been recovered by using this hot springs. Diet, basically immunostrengthening, we know more and more, we know quite a lot, but we still go and use trends that appear and die. A lot of diets are popular, and then they die. For our athletes, we still need what is very fashionable now is anti-inflammatory diets, separation and cross promotion of different foods. These are the things that are currently being experimented with. We need to know a lot more about this. We want to know what Chinese are doing this. We want to know more about all these healing foods and performance enhancement foods that we can take from ancient traditions of Latin America. There are a lot of roots, a lot of berries, fruits, different natural elements that we don't know about in Europe, in America, in Asia. It would be very interesting to know more about this from ancient Latin American traditions. So, to summarize all that, I'm inviting faculty, students, ideally if federation, say swimming federation, would be interested in some of the results of this survey, inviting them. We need to obtain survey responses from 100 coaches in order for us to compare results with USA, Europe, Western and Eastern Europe. We present results at conferences. We present them to the federation if they are on board. Present and publish. This is the article on US swimming. This is the article on Dutch swimming. I can email you if you send me an email for any information, any more details on any aspects discussed today. I will email you that. Usually, for a study that we conduct, we can do it on any sport, not just swimming, but any other Olympic sport. And we can do, as a result, 3 presentations on macro level, organization level, infrastructure level, and on training methodologies, micro level. So potentially 3 presentations and 3 articles from a study on, say, Costa Rican swimming. One of my graduate students just completed a study on Nigerian football. He is doing his degree in Malaysia, in Malaysia. But he is a former football player, so he conducted a survey of 100 football coaches in Nigeria and 10 football leaders. And we have three articles on micro level, meso level, and macro level of football in Nigeria. Very, very interesting. We did the same thing in USA. In USA soccer, they call it. They call the round ball game in the US. They call it soccer, not football. They call football the game when they play the melon. So, but please, be invited to this multinational, multi-sport project, And as you can see on micro level, we also are doing studies that a lot broader. On micro level, it could be encompassing several sports. It would be great to know the methodology, recovery, and diet aspects of Costa Rican swimming, and what is it they're eating, what is it that they're doing to recover better and have more energy, perform better. Is there any food here in Latin America? Like peanuts in the United States, peanut butter. Is there any food here that traditionally helps to perform that no one knows about? Are there any methods of recovery, like the hot springs, or any other ways to? Okay, it would be very interesting. So, the overall study on swimming can be done as well on other sports where there are a lot of coaches, like track and field and football. And it would be great to cooperate on micro level athlete care, nurturing and taking care of athletes, topics of research. Please, comments, questions, anything else you want me to detail more, or was anything? Is there anything, like you said, hot springs here? Is there anything else that came to your mind that you could share from your experience and knowledge of Latin American kids?
Based upon your experience about coaching education, what would you comment about what are the best models to train coaches from a scientific perspective?
Ideal model that does not exist is a combination of what was done in Eastern Europe, where basic education is very strong, where you're only starting to coach after you take classes on biomedical aspects. But then, in Russia, now, this 4 or 5 year education in the following years for coaches perhaps is not as strong as in, for example, ongoing education of some US coaches, where the higher the level of an athlete, the more required education you must demonstrate and more courses you need to take. So for example, US skiing and snowboarding, they went and they studied how it is done in Scandinavia and Northern Europe. They brought it to the US, and they made US skiing and snowboarding the most successful sport among winter sports in Team USA. Because skiing and snowboarding brings more medals than any other sport. The system of educating coaches is arguably very, very, very good. So they say if you coach beginners, you need to take this basic coaching classes. Intermediate level, you need to take more. a bit more managerial, a bit more scientific. If you go to the next level, it's 5 levels, I think. And when you reach the top, then you will have taken science, different aspects of coaching, exercise science, but also managerial aspects, management. And arguably, these are, in the US, perhaps this is one of the best models for coaching, but what I would love to see is both that you receive a basic education so that you start coaching beginners with a lot more knowledge than coaches in America start. Beginners are coached, as we see here, mostly by very young and not well-educated swim coaches. They say this, but that's how in the US it is seen that your coach education is done during your progression towards higher level of coaching. So it's hard to say what is better, Russian system or American system. I think it would be great to somehow take the best, have both basic. I'd say more basic education is needed for coaches in America, and ideally more science and managerial and governance, good management must be taught to Eastern European coaches, because they all suffer from lack of financial, organizational, governance aspects when they become coaches who are managers. And the higher level of coach you are, the more manager you are, right? You are manager. You're a high performance manager if you're a head coach. So in this model, in this US model of specifically skiing and snowboarding, they recognize that and they give you fresh knowledge of sports science, but also management when you are already, when you reach the high level of coaching. I think that is missing in Eastern European system. But what's there, the best to take from them is the basic knowledge, which gives little kids, an opportunity to receive very, very good care of a pedagogue, someone who took pedagogical science classes, biomedical classes, who understands the anatomy, physiology, and psychology of every kid. I'm not sure how much money is needed to do both, but this is the ideal model for coaches to get the good basis, but also get more science later on as they coach for more than 5 and 10 years. Get additional professional continuous education in science and management. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
But it's expensive and
At the beginning, you you talk about the number of sessions per day for training. Do you have any results on that or anything? I don't know, any difference that you can talk about? More sessions per day? You talk about small sessions, but several times a day.
We know from practice that in 1970s, specialized sports schools moved into doing 2 practices a day and then 3 practices a day. So coaches were charged in the Soviet Union and in other countries, coaches were charged with this, developing the optimal number and how to break it up. And for endurance sports, they came up with short practice in the morning, then a bit of studies, breakfast, studies again, then longer practice, then again studies, academic studies like schooling, lunch, studies again, and then another big practice. And after that, rest, a bit of homework, rest, and sleep, night sleep. Some of the most advanced sports schools did it. Scientific groups helped them. So now we're returning to this, and in America we are testing. So next year, some results are going to be from University of Northern Iowa, where swimmers are going to do 1 practice a day, and a group. Another group is going to do 2, and we're trying to get another group that is going to do 3. So we're going to try and do it in different socioeconomic conditions in different country. I think a lot of sports now do not have the infrastructure. They want to do it, and from conversations with coaches, some coaches want to do it. They just cannot afford and cannot get kids for 3 practices. You need this facility. You need your school next to your swimming pool, next to everything. You need it. So I think the short answer, there is evidence based on practical results of coaches. What we're trying to do now is to do it in a scientifically sound conditions as a scientific experiment where we could definitely say this is how swim team achieved certain results by training not once a day but twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. And the same thing for strength. We do strength training for like football players and see how strength training is achieving better results by breaking down into 2 and 3. We have evidence from, for example, we have evidence from some of the successful weightlifting coaches. We had interviewed a Greek coach who brought Greek weightlifters to the top of the world. He worked with Russian weightlifters, some of the best Olympians. What he said is that in Greece, they break down their session in more than 3 times. They spend all day in short bouts. This is pure strength, right? So for strength, this is the evidence from the coach who achieved high results. His process is they go outside every hour. They do a bit of lifting. They do one set, and they go out and they spend the same amount of time recovering. They come back. They might be in the gym for an hour. They go away for at least an hour. They eat a little bit, have a coffee, relax, go to the sun. He said, I take them to the sun. He said this. They need sun. They need fresh air. We have this whole day where we might have 6 bouts, and after each bout, we go away for a long time. So this is evidence from practical experience of a national team coach in Greece. So we want to have more scientifically sound advice about swimming, about strength training. But I think we have enough evidence to say we need to try and break it down and provide try and provide more practices with long recovery. I know that Oregon project in track and field, sponsored by Nike. Those who did the oxygenation simulation of high altitude in houses and in tents. Then they later moved into developing the healthiest track and field practices. And the most important conclusion from them was, you spend as much time on your specialized training as you spend on conditioning exercises. So, for example, if you're a sprinter and you spend 1 hour every day sprinting, you must spend 1 hour stretching and doing other recovery and conditioning and strength exercises. So I think this is contributing to this evidence of that we need to try and increase and improve the recovery process and timing of recovery and how it's integrated. Another thing new that comes with this concept of recovery is integration of stretching and integration of rest into the practice, into the training process. Even if it's one long practice, how many rest and stretching breaks you have? Some coaches are saying you need more and more, and you need to bring, if it's a strength, so whether it's like speed or strength, it must be followed by stretching straight away. Not like in the past, we were stretching after you've done your practice. You've done your 1 hour or hour and a half or even 2 hours of training. Okay, then you stretch and you go home. So what I hear from coaches now more and more is, incorporate your stretching straight after the muscles that you worked for strength, stretch it straight away for speed. So if you did squats, you did like 3 or 4 sets of squats. of say, I don't know, 10 reps, 10 repetitions. You've done this 3-4 sets, stop and stretch straight away those muscles that work. Then you do another exercises. You might do arms, and after you do your arms, straight away you stretch your arms straight away, or even integrate it into, in other words, one set and then stretch. So this is what coaches are telling us they're experimenting with. And more recovery, more frequent recovery, and more recovery integrated into practices. So the next question in swimming will be, you have your interval training, right? You have your, you know your rest, right? Like you swim, I don't know, 10 by 50 within a minute, right? So you know what needs to be, you think you know the rest you need after each 50. You might rest for what? 20, 30 seconds, right? 20-second rest after each 50. We're questioning that. And after you've done, is this the optimal? And then after you've done 10 by 50, right? You say, okay, now you do 10 by 25, right? So the question for us is, what is the rest between? Is it just 1 minute, or should it be actually 5 minutes? Should you have 10 minutes rest, or should you have them do other things during this time? I don't know, read, talk, because this weightlifting coach from Greece, he said we do 3-4 sets. That's it. We have a long break and we talk and we analyze. How was it? What did you feel? Where did it hurt? At which point could you do more? He said we spent 15 minutes doing squats, and then we spent an hour talking about it, sitting around on the sun, eating and drinking during your practice, and talking, analyzing, sharing emotions, sharing experiences. It's a very different approach. This Greek approach was very different from what traditionally in the Soviet Union considered to be best practice. Maybe we need to look at this as well. So it would be very interesting again to see, okay, this is what Latin American coaches are trying that is different. It would be very interesting to find out if there is a very interesting thing, because I think culturally you might be different, but also culturally you develop something different that others could use. So it's two things. You're culturally different, so you need to do something differently, but also you come up with totally different things. You use different methods. You use different food. You use different recovery methods. That's how we now realize that how much we have to borrow from Chinese. So it would be very interesting to see if there is a Latin American experience that maybe even you have not explored as much as you could here. I mean, looking from an outside of the success of Latin American countries in football, me being not a specialist in football, but I can see the roots of this success in the ancient pre-Christian traditions of Latin America, and how some of the skills that Latin American players are demonstrating are connected with the game that was played here before Europeans came. So it would be very interesting also to find out if there are any methods and substances that ancient nations of Latin America have used that you might have tried for performance enhancement.
I have a question
Please.
about survive. Is the problems you found in your survive could be the problems in another sport?
In which sport?
I mean, the same problems that you found could be the same problems in another sport, like, I don't know, soccer or football.
What I outlined for the US issues, these issues are similar in other sports. I wouldn't be so confident in saying this if other sports did not confirm these key issues in swimming. They're a bit more or less evident in other sports. And in other sports, there might be some other issues on micro level, on athlete care level. But on macro level, on how sport is supported, funded, they are similar. They're similar across other sports. Infrastructure in terms of system of competitions and facilities in the US differs across sports more, and the trend is that they become less and less organized. That less organized sports are becoming very popular in the US, but they sooner or later they also become Olympic sports and become organized, like surfing.
Yeah.
Surfing just became skateboarding. And other sports that were street sports, now they're organized Olympic sports, and opportunities for advancement are similar. Yeah. But on micro level, for athlete care, nurturing of athletes, there are many very specific practices for swimming that are different from track and field, and in the US it very much depends on whether the sport is professional, whether it's supported by leagues, professional leagues or not, and whether it's supported by university competition systems or not. Because if they do, they have a lot of money to support athletes at lower level. So the problem with US swimming is that it's not professional, but the good thing for US swimming is that it's part of the university system, and universities across the country support it. There are teams at every university, at least at large university, has a swim team. So those sports that don't have university support in the US, their issues are different. They are in a much vulnerable, difficult position. But for those who are on television and university teams in the US, the same. Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. I think we are all motivated. I think that your model of macro, meso, and micro is conceptually very useful. And give us a whole picture of the factors that intervene in a specific. And just for propaganda, Dr. Smolianov is going to be a speaker on the Swimming and Science seminar that we're going to have on the 8th and 9th of December. And he will be here for a few days more in case you want to contact him. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Great questions, great discussion. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you email me and we continue our research together. Thank you. So cool.